Statistics. An optical illusory weapon of the West. That is now, just in this moment, the title I have decided to give to this video. Is it provocative enough to get your attention? I suppose we'll see. You might have already clicked off, that's fine. I want to use this video as a way for me to kind of plant some seeds of doubt in minds that are otherwise too confident, that are overconfident, to kind of point the finger at the chalkboard to say Dunning-Kruger effect ad infinitum. But more importantly, I want to paint some correlations between some content that I believe are connections that are not being made in the greater whole of society. And maybe they're not there. Maybe they are being projected by myself. Maybe everything you're about to hear is total hogwash. For that matter, let's cover credentials. Why should you listen to me? First and foremost, you shouldn't. I am just a guy. Just a regular, every fucking day guy. I am going to swear in this video. If that upsets you, turn off. Already I'm off to a great start, captivating my audience. I am a regular guy. I work the 40-hour week job at a manufacturing plant. I have been doing so for over 5 years now. Before that, I did all kinds of labor jobs, like painting fences, pulling weeds, laying pipe, doing freight, regular people stuff. And when I say regular people, I mean working class people. But I don't want to get too much in the weeds talking about myself. That's not important. I am just a guy. And in respect of me being just a guy, I am trying to invoke a certain sense of solidarity with the working class. Most of my audience is likely going to be regular everyday guys, maybe even regular everyday ladies, or regular everyday non-binary folk. But my demographic is not as important as my message. And my message is that we ultimately, as a society, as a global society, have kind of, by and large, been fooled. Now, that's an evocative statement, and I'll own that. I am not going to back up anything I am going to say in this exhortation with any kind of facts or citation at all. So if you're expecting me to have receipts for anything I'm saying, sorry. Once again, I'm a regular dude. Regular people don't fucking cite their works. Why? Because regular people don't have access to citations of profound empirical evidence that supports their case study. A lot of people, for the most part, notice patterns and jump to conclusions, and then get beaten back by a bunch of nerds who tell them that they just have found a narrative and nothing more. And when I believe in a lot of cases, there is likely more to it than that, and the common man probably doesn't get enough credit for recognizing the patterns that we observe in society, especially those of the predatory and manipulatory nature. So, what am I really talking about here? Well, let's start by addressing the main topic that I brought up in the title of the video: statistics. Statistics have become an extremely potent tool in swaying people to one side or another. A completely effective tool. People who like to think themselves intelligent often will use statistics as a way to sort of proof or verify their findings or their positions. And for some things, that's great. For some things, statistics works, and it works in a sincere and objective manner. For most things, statistics is not used in a fair, sincere, objective manner. Statistics, conceptually, are pretty much used en masse for manipulation. Some of that manipulation is not it's not targeted. Sometimes it's not even necessarily premeditated. Sometimes it just happens as a result, as a side effect of the data collected. And some statistics are good. Some statistics, they've done their work. They've really gone through their paces. The data in the findings is sound, and it is sometimes even foolproof. But nothing related to statistics is ever foolproof. Whether it be the sample size being not enough, or the demographic being the wrong one, or not inclusive enough, or the time span of the overall study being not long enough, or too short, or too long. Sometimes it is just too much data to really be representative of any given core of ideas. Sometimes if you wait long enough, your data sets will start to correlate with the overall message you are trying to send. And there is a difference between biased and non-biased statistics and data. The difference is if it's non-biased data, someone probably didn't make it. That's kind of a joke, but I don't know. I am biased in my bias against statistics, and that is part of why I'm making this address. If you sit with me long enough, I do believe I can convince you to at least doubt statistics. Not necessarily by and large all of them, but at least more of them than you currently were doubting. Especially in the West is I guess the other main focus here. I'm not exactly as well versed as I probably should be on the nature of statistics outside of the West. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm not exactly well versed in anything, really. Again, back to credentials, I am just a guy. And when I say I am just a guy, I mean I did not even go to college. I have a high school degree, and everything else is just completely life experience and exposure and findings and rubbing elbows with people that knew, and sometimes seeking out on my own accord knowledge that I wanted to know more about. But again, I'm getting off topic talking about myself. Already wasting enough of your time. I am so sorry for that. So, correlations, right? So, what is the benefit of manipulatory data in this world, right? What does anyone stand to gain? Well, I mean, how much time do you have? The imagination runs wild. But ultimately, it is used as a form of control. And that's the other stepping stone I want to use to get into bigger topics, because this is going to go all the way. We're going full scale here. I'm not going to stop this video until either some sort of technical catastrophe happens, someone shoots me in the back of the head, or I've gotten everything off of my chest. So buckle up. Or click off, I suppose, which use your agency. I don't care. I do care. That's why I'm making this video. But anywho, I really should have wrote down some notes or something. Statistics as a manipulatory tool. We see statistics, and whether we want to or not, we inadvertently fall for those statistics as, for most of us anyways, as fact, as law, as data. And most of us don't go through the proper process of challenging that data, of making sure that that data was gathered in a strong way, or so it is strong data, or robust data, I suppose, might be the other way to term it. We often just accept it blindly. It's the same way that in the past, like 10 so years, there's been a phenomenon of people sharing articles without reading beyond the headlines. And we've noticed that time and time again. There's like a pop-up on Twitter, now known as X, often, that will sort of warn someone if they've shared an article without reading it. And we do that a lot. It is just our nature. A lot of the times we don't need to read more than the headline to automatically have our quick little dopamine of confirmation bias and psychological, moral validation. So, now, why is it important to note that? Why is it important to draw attention to that? Well, because the more a government is able to use a tool like statistics to either placate or otherwise suppress their populace, the longer they are able to get away with things that run counter to what the data is saying. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, we had quite a bit of tension brewing in the United States towards police brutality. Now, a lot of people could see with their eyes in video evidence that police were being hyper-aggressive. Far more aggressive than necessary with people they were trying to apprehend, people they were trying to arrest, and sometimes, as blatantly as you can see with your own eyes, people they were trying to kill. People can speak against that to their own motivations, but I think we all know better, ultimately. Our court system is designed to make sure that men are not carelessly thrown into jail, even though it often does that as well. But there is the idiom that we are innocent until proven guilty, is the statement that is thrown around a lot. What we don't like to talk about is how that is really only applicable in favoritism type cases. Most especially in those with immunity, or rather, what is it? Not diplomatic immunity, but you know what I'm talking about. Cop immunity, effectively. Fuck, what is the term? God damn it. It doesn't matter. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. They have a certain amount of immunity. And the unions for the police unions will get them off on most cases. Even if they straight up murdered someone, most of them just flat up get away. I don't have data for that. You want to know why? Because there is no data for that. No one is doing the work to gather that kind of data, and if there were, there would be some kind of greater power with greater funding, working to undermine the use and the exposure and the publication of that data. Because statistics and data are a tool of manipulation by the West. They might be a tool of manipulation by the East as well. I don't know. I'm just speaking to my wheelhouse here. I live in the West. I've grown up in the West. I know people from the West. So, now, the data set I wanted to get to was a data set that a number of individuals within the United States, of citizens within the United States, used to defend the actions and the overall growing state of police violence, which was a statistic that would say that black people are far more likely to commit crimes against black people, and that it was actually black people's fault that they were getting killed, because more black people were killing black people than white people were killing black people. And if you just take that information, take that statistic, take that data set at face value, then it is extremely easy to just blow off the whole thing and assume that there is no need to worry, and that these videos are picked and chosen through hundreds and hundreds of other videos where probably nothing goes wrong, right? Well, some of you probably might still believe that to be the case. It's not the case. The case is there is overwhelming evidence of police brutality because there is overwhelming police brutality. And the evidence is video evidence, and you can say, well, it's footage, it's dogged up, it's ponied up, it's magic, it's smoke and mirrors, it's been edited. Yes, those tools can be utilized. However, you also must ask yourself, what is to be gained? What is to be gained from someone manipulating the footage to show police officers in a bad light? Absolutely nothing. There is no business, there is no enterprise, there is no corporation that exists that would financially benefit from the loss of law enforcement. There is not. Is not one. And the reason for that is corporations and businesses, by and large, benefit from having law enforcement. Law enforcement is able to defend their assets, sometimes retrieve their assets when they're stolen, able to hunt down the perpetrators of destruction of their assets. Anytime anyone is on the hook for financial loss in the United States of America, there is a very good chance that the law enforcement officers will be able to avenge the loss of those funds. Now, if you are a private citizen and you experienced some kind of loss, if it is not of a financial nature, the law enforcement officers will likely not do anything for you, unless there is greater risk of the perpetrator doing the crime again against someone who will lose funding or will lose financial assets or is a greater financial asset to the community themselves. Cops do not exist to protect and serve. They do not exist to keep the peace. They exist to keep the profits. And that is what they do. They protect assets. And that is how they have always been. Before they were ever called cops or law enforcement or peace officers, anything like that, they were effectively paid mercenaries acting as guards for assets. That's how it's always been. Now, when we talk about the use of this data to placate the masses, it's effective. It absolutely 100% is effective because it turns the conversation to a facts versus fiction discussion rather than the greater topic, which is police brutality versus the oppressed civilians of the nation. It is a extremely effective way to completely side-skirt the issue. To this day, we have not really addressed the matter. We continue to fund law enforcement. We continue to allow them to perpetrate qualified immunity. That's the term I was looking for earlier. We continue to allow them to have absolutely unchecked police unions, and normally I'm a fan of unions, but in this case, unions are not a good thing. They exist in perpetuity. They are allowed to completely keep doing what they're doing. They have been unchecked, unchallenged. Maybe their funding has taken a hit, but inflation is a thing. We've all been hit. It is not just the police that are feeling the pinch on that. You know, a lot of people are dealing with layoffs right now. And as they lose their job and turn to crime, guess who's there to meet them? Yes, it's all connected. It's all connected. So, now I want to address the intent, or rather the optics of the situation. I said it's an optical illusion. What do I mean by that? I mean everything the United States is focused on is based on optics and visuals. There's a few surface level things you can touch on, and there's a lot of deep cut things you can talk about, and I'm probably going to hit some of them here. But overall, the United States of America is obsessed with appearances. It is obsessed with maintaining the image of the good guy, of the hero, of the just, and the noble, and the heroic, and the honorable. And most of that is just optics. After you peel away the facade, it is not the case. And many of us already know that, but many more refuse to accept it. So, I'm going to touch on a few reasons that are big reasons why America is not the good guy. So we're digging into something that's not exactly being touched on by the title, but you'll see how it links up with the statistics and the optics of perpetrating this illusory visage of being the good guys that we're not. So, let's go all the way back to the Civil War. Oftentimes, we talk about how, rather the Southerners will talk about how the war was about states' right. To quickly dismiss that engagement, the states' right to what? Exactly. And that is when they run away screaming, because the reality is it was the states' rights to slave labor. Yes, slave labor is what the whole war was about. There's some minutia to be discussed about this or that being somewhat relevant or whatever, but ultimately it was the states' rights to slave labor. This was in a large aspect because the South had quite the monopoly on slave labor. There was not quite as much slave labor available in the North, and economically, this disparaged the North compared to the South. So, you could say, well, the North wanted to free the slaves. Well, they, of course, had their own motivations, yes? So, they didn't want the South to have a resource that they did not have. It's pretty simple, actually. And so, the easiest way to do this, short of stealing them or buying them was to outlaw them. And that's how the whole war began. Even after the war, most slave labor did not really stop. Most of us know that. Segregation continued long after that war. Even now, racism is still plaguing our country pretty badly, to a toxic extent. And especially against black people, others as well, and to a slightly lesser extent, but black people are ultimately very, very repressed still to this day, and targeted, and have to deal with systemic issues and systemic racism. So, not the good guys. In the Civil War, there were no good guys. Both sides were bad. Go towards, let's fast forward to World War II. I don't know shit about World War I, if I'm being completely frank. World War II. We were giving, oil and gas. Oil? I think it was just oil. To Japan. We were also making deals and helping China during the Chino-Japanese War. And eventually, some things happened, and we ultimately had to decide to stop giving Japan oil. I'm not going to go over exactly the finer details of what exactly it was that happened that made that happen, but you can look it up yourself. Now, the awkward part about that is that Japan had already effectively purchased a 5-year contract for the oil, and America was very, very slow and dragging its feet to deliver on that contract. And then, as part of the Allied nations, we ultimately had to tell Japan that we would be giving them an embargo, and we would not be continuing to give them supplies. This angered Japan, and Japan effectively tried to warn us that doing so would force their hand. And we intended to intercept whatever they planned to do in their retaliation. We expected retaliation, but we expected that retaliation to be further away from home. We expected them to attack islands south of Japan, whether that be the Philippines or any of the other island nations that are down that way. We thought they were more valuable. We thought they were closer. We thought they were more likely targets. We did not expect the absolute audacity of Japan crossing the whole ass Pacific to attack Hawaii. But make no mistake, they did warn us. So, our retaliatory efforts thereafter were completely unwarranted. We knew they were going to attack us if we continued to stop giving them, not even giving them, selling them the goods. So, there's that. Now, was Japan ultimately part of the axis of evil? Oh, yes. Was Japan also committing absolute fucking atrocities in their war against China and their war against Australia? Yes, horrific, terrible, terrible things. However, America had chosen to be a non-combatant in this war up until this point. It was this one moment of retaliation where we finally decided to engage. The war had been going on. All the rest of the world was already engaged. We were one of the very last to get involved, and we only got involved after we were attacked. So, for us to claim, one, that we, we're doing our noble duty in World War II when we only fucking joined the campaign in the theater after it was absolutely necessary for us to do so is just belligerent. More so than that, the retaliatory methods used on Japan don't need to be understated at all. That was completely out of line, completely overboard, completely not necessary. You can't claim to be the good guys when you do that to a population, to a civilian population. Is absolutely a fucking atrocity. America was not the good guys. We also did not win the war. It was often said that the war was won with British intelligence, American steel, and Russian blood. Well, the Russian blood is the part that really did it. Could the Russians have won without American steel? Maybe not. But they were the ones doing the majority of the fighting. It was not us. We had fighters. We had people that did fight in the World War. It's not to discredit their involvement, but our contribution was effectively minimal by comparison. Russia put it all on the line. America put what we could afford. That's the ultimate takeaway. America did not treat it like a world war. America treated it like an inconvenience. Now, fast forwarding to Vietnam. America did not want communism to be spread. That's it. That's the whole war. Ultimately, classified documents have been declassified rather, to reveal that we started it. We blew up a boat and we used that as a fucking false flag to start the war. Got public opinion on board, started the war. The things we did to Vietnam are still being felt to this day. There are still mines in Vietnam from the war that we waged with them. They are still harming people. They are still killing people to this day. Over what? Because we wanted to get rid of communism, or to stop the spread of communism. Did we succeed? Maybe. Up for debate. Cuban Missile Crisis. Bay of Pigs. Again, we're not the good guys there. Trying to stop the spread of communism. That is our only motivation. It is not a just motivation. It is not a good motivation. It is a purely selfish motivation. You say, why are we trying to stop the spread of communism? Well, it's not because communism is evil. It's because America is afraid. Communism, and socialism, rather, conceptually conflict with capitalism. If communism and socialism were able to thrive, they would absolutely become more popular than capitalism. Capitalism has the absolute back-breaking task and responsibility of keeping people too stupid to recognize that communism and socialism is better for them. Why is it better for them? Because it is better for your everyday working class person. But capitalism keeps those working class people completely hypnotized by the potential, impossible prospect of becoming wealthy someday. It is a carrot on a stick philosophy. You and I will likely never see the fruits of our labor. Never truly see the fruits of our labor. We will buy ourselves our little treats and our little snacks, and those will make us feel good for a little moment. But ultimately, as far as the overwhelming success at the long end of our long life, it's not there. And most of us don't even have the luxury of getting to the end of that long life. not to use statistics here, but the average lifespan of the American is only 77 some years. When you consider that you will likely be working for at least like 30 to 40 of those years, and most of those are also spent, learning to work, so in a lot of ways still part of the work, how much freedom are you really afforded? How much retirement? How much vacation? How much leisure? How much time to your fucking self do you ultimately end up getting? Not a fucking lot. And there's nothing wrong with work. Work is important. We need work. It keeps everything running the way that it needs to in order for societies to function and flourish. However, capitalism is an Ouroboros. We are constantly chasing unchecked profit and growth in all things. We want year-over-year growth and profit increase from everything. We do not accept losses. We do not accept balance and the same and year-over-year non-increases. Part of this is because populations increase, and so we anticipate this population increase by projecting that our companies grow. If the population is increasing and the companies and the profits are not, then we're ultimately going to start seeing a deficit. That's the bullshit they'll probably spin. It might be true, but the other thing to consider is that ultimately big advancements in technology, big advancements in medicine, big advancements in everything that we do cut down the amount of labor necessary for things to continue to advance and for things to continue to create profit. Looking at food, just as an example, our food production capabilities are unfucking believable compared to what they were 100 years ago. Unfucking believable. The few amount of people it takes to feed entire nations, entire continents, even. Logistics are a little bit more of an issue when it comes to getting food to the right people and blah 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 blah. Especially because there's no motivation to do it. You give the food to the people that can afford to buy it. Now, 9/11. I won't get into the weeds too much here, but there's a lot you can look up that makes a lot of what was involved in that whole thing seem very fishy. We can disagree on what did or did not happen, or the motivations behind what did or did not happen. But at the end of the day, I think we can at least all agree something was going on. I intended for this video to be a lot longer. I'm starting to run out of steam, if I'm being completely honest. I really just wanted to get some things off of my chest and just kind of trying to, paint a picture that maybe I felt someone else wasn't painting, or that someone else's weren't painting. I kind of feel like I am just rambling and not really getting to the point that I'm trying to make. So, yeah. I ultimately wanted to end by discussing the more recent topic of Israel and Palestine, and to kind of draw the parallel between Israel taking Palestinian land and America taking, or rather the U.S. colonists taking Native American land. Because if you're not seeing that parallel, you really should be. You really should be seeing that parallel here. It's happening. Has been happening. So, is it necessarily, like, should the colonists, the U.S. colonists, just die? Should they pay reparations? No, they're still people too. But ultimately, land that is conquered does not belong to you. It's land that was conquered. That is not a just way to make a home. So, if we are having a battle of morality, I am sorry, but occupying forces don't get a fucking seat at the table. That's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I've probably lost most of you by now anyways. If you are still listening, honestly, thank you. Thank you for just listening. I hope you gleaned something out of this. Maybe something you didn't know. Maybe just an itch to go look up more, to go see what the fuck I was talking about. Because I'm not using citations myself. But also, don't trust statistics. Check the statistic sizes. Check how the data was gathered. Check the sample sizes. Check if it was a blind versus a double-blind study. Check the fucking shit, because it matters. It matters so goddamn much. Don't let the fucking bar graphs manipulate you. If there's anything to take away from this video, don't let the fucking bar graphs manipulate you. Stop letting your boss tell you that you don't get a raise because Excel spreadsheet. Stop it. Stop letting it happen. It's bullshit. You can probably prove it's bullshit with the minimal amount of effort. Prove it's bullshit. Call them on their shit. Get your raise. I'm so far in the weeds. Okay. Well, until next time. Maybe I'll make another attempt. But I'm done for tonight. Have a good one.